Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action. Of course, we'll be playing D2R when it launches on September 23rd. We're doing hardcore group found with members of my own community. I also play Project Diablo 2 and LOD Vanilla, and we have a lot of that content and other guides of such on YouTube. Today, we are making a Dream Paladin guide, a video guide for Maxroll, d2.maxroll.gg. If you guys want to check out all of the insane Diablo 2 content on Maxroll. Maxroll has everything, every late mid game guide, early game guides, resource guides for learning everything you could possibly want to know about Diablo 2. And of course, a D2 planner to even plan out and save your characters before you make them. Um, Crazy, crazy stuff indeed. At Maxroll, I am a member of Maxroll and have written many of these build guides, including the one that this video guide is being made for. We will be today going over the Dream Paladin. We'll be talking about all kinds of things, stats, skills, gear, and of course we'll be doing demos of some of his farming areas that he's strong at, which is almost everything for this character. We'll be focusing on the standard variant because this variant does so many things really well on the Dream Paladin. There's other guides that I've made where I've gone over different kinds of variations of the build. The other builds work very well for different situations. However, this one just destroys everything. So we'll stick to the standard Dream Paladin today when going over the build. And hopefully they'll also make this guide a little bit shorter. We'll be doing this on my LOD Pluggy Grail, my now finished LOD Pluggy Grail, where I found all of the items, uniques, and sets, and where I've completed all the rune words. So do not expect necessarily 100% perfect gear being shown off today on this Dream Paladin. However, there will be some they're very strong items, and they should be very similar to what you see on the Maxwell guide itself, if not nearly identical. So, should be very good stuff, and of course we'll show him in action, and you guys can decide for yourself whether or not he is worth playing. We'll be doing most of the demos in Players 7 as well, and Player 7, of course, being one of the higher player counts. So as you can see, players set to 7. So in a full game, this build can rip everything to shreds. Absolutely eviscerates, melts everything. It's an amazing jack of all trades. He's an A tier build overall, being very versatile, but not necessarily as efficient as some of those S tier builds. So he's but most of all, he's a lot of fun. One drawback to him though is that he is somewhat expensive. So, without further ado and getting that all out of the way, let's get into his stats and show you guys kind of what kind of stats you're looking for and what kind of stats this character has in general. So, in general, on a Dream Paladin, which by the way, ours is 95, so, getting to 99 is pretty tough. Like I said, this is kind of a more realistic showcase of this character because it's not 100% perfect in every manner. I know that the build is 100% ideal on Maxwell just to show you guys what's possible, but this character is 100% solo self-found on single player, like I said, on my pluggy on LOD, and this gear is, it's reasonable to expect after a ton of farming. You put in hundreds of hours, maybe 1,000 hours, you'll get all this gear 100%. Alright, anyway. Without further ado, so on stats, we have as much strength as required to wear our gear. I didn't bother strength bugging. As you can see, I have just exactly 77 strength to wear this Enigma Dust Shroud without it on. We have Dex. One thing to mention about strength is you can put more points into strength if you want, and it will increase the physical damage component of the Dream Paladin. The damage is a hybrid mix between physical and lightning. A Dream Paladin does a ton of both. So putting more points into strength is definitely an option for increasing your damage. However, overall I don't recommend it because his damage is already insanely high. But you can always do it for fun. Alright, Dexterity. Here we put enough Dexterity in to make sure that we have all what we need for maximum block. So there we go. Make sure we cast Holy Shield where we have our plus skills. And now we have 75% chance to block. Alright, yeah, we did that wrong initially. So 75% chance to block. 75% chance to block is always what you want in a Paladin because Holy Shield is incredible and makes it really easy to get max block on a Paladin, so you should always be trying to get max block in every version of this build, including the variants that are shown on the max roll guide. So, GG stuff there. Attack rating is not as important on this build as on other melee builds, simply because we have Conviction. One of the benefits of having Conviction Aura is that Conviction Aura lowers monster defense, in addition to lowering all resistances. So, because it lowers defense by 92%, attack rating is not really the most important stat, but 5,000 is a lot, which means we're not really going to have any issues with 5,000 combined with Conviction Aura, so we should be fine. Our defense, of course, is also being improved by Holy Shield and our gear, so it's looking pretty nice. In general, though, just enough dex to make sure you get max block with Holy Shield. It has been buffed by your plus skill swap, so on my weapon swap. And then make sure you just max block is the way to go, 100%. And then you don't put any points into energy. You don't need any extra points in energy. There is Mana Leech on this build. That's pretty much it. You pretty much rely on Mana Potions and Mana Leech as you're teleporting and you're attacking and whatnot. And then you just put the rest of the points into Vitality after we do the rest of that. And we have 3,000 health, which is pretty good. Of course, you can have more health with different charms and other things, but that's pretty solid. And then another thing to mention is that we have maximum res. Not only do we have maximum res, we have stacked resistances. Our resistances are very, very high. Our damage reduction on this build is not insanely good, though, so our physical resistance is kind of lacking, but to be fair, because you have max block and a lot of defense, you don't normally take too much damage. Even with the standard version of the build, you're not going to die often unless you run into some really nasty enemies like charged zombies, dolls, and things of that nature. So be very careful about those kinds of enemies, but besides that, it's going to be pretty solid. And then notice that our res is past 175 each. 175 is how to get, 75 in hell. So we even have stacked res, because it's pretty easy to stack resistances on this build because of dreams and whatnot. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And just make sure your res are at least 75 each. If you stack them beyond that, then Conviction Aura won't affect you as much. That's especially important for hardcore. On softcore, it's important if you're going to 99. Alright. Another thing to note is that this is a very high magic find build. So in addition to doing tons of damage and shredding pretty much everything, this build is crazy strong at when it comes to farming. Over 400 MF for a build that can kill players 7. So for high player count killing, or even players 3, which in some cases is more efficient, we'll try to show both here and there if possible. That is a lot of magic finds, so it's pretty easy to stack magic find on this build, which is definitely a pretty huge plus. Got, of course, FCR, so on swap, which is how we're going to be teleporting. Teleport's the only skill that's going to require FCR on this build. We have the 48% faster cast rate breakpoint, so there's, breakpoints for the Paladin, and there's one at 48, there's one below that, I think, at 27, and then there's one above that at 75. Actually, I think it's 32, never mind. Well, anyway, one of the two. I'd have to check again, but anyway, there is 75% faster cast rate would be the top one. We don't, of course, have 75 faster cast rate at the moment. We have only 48. 48's pretty good, though. So 48 being will allow us to teleport faster. So we're going to teleport on weapon swap, switch to our main weapon loadout, and then attack. As long as we have Enigma, that's how you want to play this build. If you don't have Enigma, you charge around everywhere. And I could demo that possibly as well. And then you can jump in and attack if you have like a teleport charge amulet or something that would be easier to use in a different version of this build. Attack speed. You need at least 72% increased attack speed on this build, which means it's pretty much got to be Grief, some kind of 20 FCR gloves, and High Lords, at least on the standard version of the build. Don't have Fanaticism on the standard version of the build, so you do need a lot of attack speed to reach that maximum attack speed frame. Life Leech and Mana Leech. So it is very important to have at least one source of Life Leech and one source of Mana Leech. Normally the best way to accomplish this on this particular build is a dual Leech Ring. And then we have Faster Run Walk, which isn't really insanely important to the best of the abilities and whatnot. It's not insanely important, but it is the way it is. Let's see here. We've got... Alright, so then we have 48% faster hit recovery. That's another breakpoint, so that's decent hit recovery. We rely mostly on our block rate, or faster block rate, because we have 75% block, but there are elemental damage attacks and whatnot that hit recovery is going to matter for sure. Of course, physical damage attacks will still kind of matter for that, but that's pretty good. That's also what we're aiming for on this build. And just we have the experience from Annihilus, and pretty much the rest of this is just a given from High Lords and Grief. Alright, that's pretty much it for stats. Let's go over the skills and how there's many different ways to do things with the skills. This particular version of the build's actually a little different than what's shown on Max Roll. However, honestly, I would prefer for faster town movement going for Vigor Aura. Something I actually plan to do on this character if I respect him, so I just haven't done it yet. I can always go back and respec him and whatnot, but I actually don't have infinite respecs on my pluggies, so I have I'd have to use a token for that, but it's okay. Anyway, on Max Roll you can see I got 1 into Vigor, which is pretty standard. You're going to want to definitely max Resist, Lightning, and Salvation on top of that, no matter what. These are absolute musts on this build, because these are synergies for Holy Shock. Now you might ask, hey Dark Humility, why are you not leveling Holy Shock? Wouldn't Holy Shock from your skill stack on top of the Holy Shock from the Dreams that are granting level 30 Holy Shock? The answer is no. No, that's not how it works. The aura level from your own would override if it was higher than the Dreams, but you still wouldn't get the... So then what would happen is that the Holy Shock from these would become totally useless. You don't want to do that anyway, because you need to use the points elsewhere. But you can also do like a natural... There's also a different build that's not a Dream Paladin, but like a natural Tesladin, where you would go for maxing out Holy Shock, and then you'd go for the synergies. That in some ways is, it's very similar power. There's different advantages to that and disadvantages to that, but the Double Dream approach tends to do more damage, and it tends to be more reliable for crowd control, and it tends to do other things well as well. Anyway, do not max out Holy Shock. You want to max out the synergies. So as you can see here, the synergies are Resist, Lightning, and Salvation. So, believe it or not, if you max out the synergies on the Paladin himself, you're actually maxing out the synergies for this level 30 Holy Shock you're getting from the Dreams. They do add together as long as they're on items, but the items do not add on top of a Holy Shock from your own Paladin. So that, just keep that in mind. So we're using these, we're using the level 30 from these, and then we're maxing out the synergies to max out its power. Double Dreams are most effective on a Paladin or on a Sorceress, where a Sorceress has Lightning Mastery, which boosts the lightning damage of the Dreams itself. instead of boosting the actual Holy Shock aura. So in the case of the Paladin, we're synergizing the Holy Shock aura, which is why a Paladin with double dreams is really good. Other characters can of course go double dream, but it's not nearly as effective on any other characters because they have no way of synergizing the Holy Shock aura or increasing the lightning damage by a flat percent, such as from Lightning Mastery on a sorceress. Alright. Next up, of course, we're going to want to get level 25 Conviction. So after you max out your synergies and whatnot for the Holy Shock, and you put 1 point into Bigger Aura, which is right here, and then you put 1 point into Holy Shield. You can put more points into Holy Shield if you want to increase the duration. Really low durations of Holy Shield are kind of annoying, and also you can increase your defensive power and your block chance if you want to put more points into it. But normally you just put 1 point into here. You can put 1 point to Charge as well if you want to increase your mobility, especially for some other versions of the build. And when you get Vigor, of course, you also have Cleansing, which can reduce curse duration, and it can reduce curse duration, and it can also reduce the poison length as well if you're poisoned. So amplify damage and poison, it can do that as well. Like I said, that's why I think I'd prefer this, but I don't currently have it on my pluggy build at the moment. Anyway, after you do all that, you get the 1-pointers, you max out these two. Get level 25 Conviction. Why level 25 Dark Humility? Well, level 25 Conviction is negative 150% all resistances. The all resistances bonus, the dropping of the enemy resistances and making it to where you do a lot more damage against enemies with your Holy Shock on hit from your, Zeal, hitting them with the Holy Shock that is applied to your Zeal, that is applied to your Grief. It's maxed out at 25. The negative defense will continue to get higher, but at negative 92% and 5,000 AR, there's nothing we have to worry about. So normally, yeah, you're not gonna want to max Conviction. You're going to save those points, and then after that, you level up Zeal. And you max out Sacrifice. So at the moment, we have these two maxed out. If I continued putting points in places, of course, I'd want this maxed out. If I was, ideally at level 99, but you would do this before. You put 1 point to here first thing, normally, and then you'd be good to go. Yeah, as you can see, it's pretty standard. This is a standard stuff. Very cool build, and those are the skills. Now let's go over the Mercenary. So, the Mercenary has a Reaper's Toll, a G-Face, and a Treachery. He has a Might Aura Mercenary as well, so he's a Nightmare Offensive Act 2 Mercenary. Of course, you can purchase this in Nightmare, in Act 2 from Grace, and he will give you Might Aura. Might Aura will add to our physical damage, so it's really important to add to our physical damage. On Hardcore, of course, there's other options for like defensive power and crowd control, like Defiance and Holy Freeze, but in general, you mostly just want Might Aura on a Dream Paladin in every case. Here, of course, let's talk about the items, alright? So we talked about the aura. We did show the items, though. So, Treachery is attack speed. Attack speed, you really want attack speed on this build. We don't use Fanaticism Aura on this Zealer, this Dream Paladin Zealer. That's what it is. Zeal is your main attack, and Conviction is your main aura. You don't use Fanaticism. Because we don't use Fanaticism, in order for the Mercenary to proc the Decrepify as often as possible on his Reaper's Toll, which will add to your own physical damage, it can even break physical immunes, and it overall just adds crowd control as well by slowing enemies. You want him to proc this as much as possible. In order for that to happen, you need attack speed. 75 attack speed is a breakpoint, so we're actually barely hitting a breakpoint with these three pieces of gear. And we also have Life Leech, and we also have the Fade from Treachery, which will help the Mercenary's defensive stats as well, giving him all res, curse duration reduction, and damage reduction. G-Face just gives them a lot of damage with Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike. I have a 15 attack speed, 38 ED jewel in it, which is really nice for increasing his damage. And we also have a similar jewel in this at Reaper's Toll as well. So, all those things, very ideal stuff. One thing to note, though, is an F Reaper's Toll isn't necessarily necessary. It's not necessary to have any of these things F, actually, but they'll, of course, help the damage and the defensive power of the Mercenary in the case of the Treachery and the Reaper's Toll. So Reaper's Toll, Decrepify lowers physical resistances by 50%, and, of course, you're lowering lightning, monster lightning resistances and fire and cold. I mean, we don't really care about fire and cold unless you're using the dragon version of this build, which isn't a hybrid variant on max roll. Unless you're doing that, don't care about the rest of them. But we are lowering all monster lightning res by 150% down to a bottom of negative 100% overall resistances in all monsters. So the on-hit lightning damage and the lightning damage from the Holy Shock aura, so the area of effect damage from these auras, it's going to be extremely, extremely high. We are going to have a lot of damage because we're lowering monster resistances pretty much to the max. Of course, there's some monsters that have, immune to lightning that will break with this, and we don't do as much damage to, but that's why we have so much physical damage. We're also lowering the physical damage with the Decrepify. So the physical resistances from the Decrepify. And because we're lowering physical and lightning res by a lot, this build does a ton of damage. Which brings us to why we're using Grief. So Grief gives us a ton of physical damage. It's the hardest hitting physical damage weapon in Diablo 2. And this will be the case, of course, for D2R as well. It is insanely strong because of that flat damage stat on it, and of course it's also insanely fast being in a phase blade. You always want to make your weapons in a phase blade for the attack speed. Also, they don't break, so that's also another bonus as well. Phase blades have no durability. They're indestructible. So we got a ton of damage, have Deadly Strike, just have a ton of attack speed. That physical damage will be improved by the Reaper's Toll. And then, of course, we have tons of lightning damage from the Double Dreams. Another really good option, though, is Crescent Moon. So if you can't afford a Grief, Crescent Moon is pretty cheap. It's 3-socketed Phase Blade, just requires an Rune. And Crescent Moon will decrease enemy monster res even further and give you a lot of attack speed. So it has another negative 35 enemy lightning res on it, which especially helps versus lightning immunes that you break with Conviction, because that will help you do more of your actual lightning damage to them. Crescent Moon doesn't have a lot of physical damage, however, so it will not have as much overall damage output as Grief. Other options include Azarath, which help with dual immunities or high resistances to both, which you don't have to worry about too much as long as you have the Decrepify from Reaper's Toll and Conviction combined, but it's still there. Azarath is pretty nice to use on those versions of the build. And of course, also have, besides Crescent Moon, we also have, besides Azarath, we also can use a Lightsaber. And of course, there's other really good weapons for other uses, like Last Wish for Ubers and Hand of Justice if you want to go a hybrid version of this build, which is pretty cool. Alright, and now on to the required items. You absolutely need a Dream. It doesn't have to be in a diadem, though. It doesn't have to... I'd say a Bone Visage is actually a little bit better because it has more defense. But there has to be some helmet that doesn't require too much strength. I wouldn't recommend something that requires like 190 strength, for instance, because then you can't wear it even with Enigma on. But it has to be a Dream. And a Sacred Targe is the ideal base because it has the best block rate on it. But you can also put it in other bases as well. Definitely put it in a Paladin shield that has all res though, so make sure you have like a 30 to 45 all res base Paladin shield to put this in, and then you're gonna have a good time with this Dream. So anyway, Dream has a lot of insanely good stats besides the Holy Shock, like res and MF and mana FHR, which is how we get our 48 breakpoint. If you get bad rolls in your dreams, you might need some FHR charms, but overall it's insane. Also has Confuse when struck, which makes it really, really easy to whatchamacallit, makes it really, really easy to confuse enemies, and it makes it to where most of the aggro is almost never on you. So even though we don't have tons of defensive power on this particular paladin, the monsters normally don't attack you anyway because of this. So yeah, it's all about that level 30 Holy Shock Aura, though. That is a requirement for this build. It's the name of the build. It's how you do it. Which is a little bit of a downside because you require 2 Jaw runes. As you can see, a Jaw rune is required for these. This is not a common rune. If you feel discouraged, though, I mean, there's definitely awesome farming guides and whatnot for how to farm efficiently on max roll. And even if you check the farming spots of this guide or other guides, you can see kind of how to acquire items efficiently, and hopefully you guys can pick up those Jaw runes and get this build going. High Lords is the standard for a Dream Paladin. It's how we get our attack speed. It's how we get more Deadly Strike, which further increases the physical component of our damage, and it even gives us a skill which will increase everything else, including the overall damage. So pretty good stuff. Alright, and then of course we have Enigma. Enigma is very important mainly for teleport, but of course Enigma is just crazy. It gives you everything you could ever want. Damage reduction, life after each kill, tons of magic find, maximum life, 71 strength. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Even faster run walk, which combined with vigor and charge, which we don't have vigor on this, like I said, on this particular version of it, but that's what I'd recommend. So yeah, just crazy stats. Overall, like, nothing's going to be Enigma on this build. And we swap, as you can see. Having that teleport mobility is just going to make this build sick. Alright. And then, of course, we have a Call to Arms, which is pretty standard in late game on almost all builds. Just a huge increase of life and mana, as you can see right there. 6 battle orders is max, so that's pretty cool. And then, of course, a Spirit Sacred Charge. Now, it doesn't have to be 35 FCR. You just got to make sure you have at least 48 FCR total. So I guess a 28 one would suffice on this particular setup. Of course, there's one setup where you're going to need 35 because you need to hit 75, which is the high mobility setup. Having res is good on this, though, because you are teleporting with this, so making sure you have good res or having stacked res is definitely preferred. So making it a nice high all-res base, a 4-socketed Sacred Charge. Sacred Charge being both on our Dream and our Spirit, make it to where we don't have to worry about block chance on our swap or our main hand. So as you can see, we have 75 no matter what, which is pretty cool. And one reason I put a CTA in a double axe. If you didn't know you could put it in a double axe, one reason I did that was to make it to where you could tell when you're on your swap. So you can see how I have an axe versus a sword. If I make it in a crystal sword, you can't tell. I also put the Smite skill on the offhand, which even though you don't really use it, if I accidentally use it, I don't get caught in Zeal animation. And I at least know that I am on my weapon swap, so I can differentiate it from my main hand weapon. That's pretty good stuff. It's pretty good tactics there. And then we have Laying of Hands. Laying of Hands, once again, that helps us get to our 72 attack speed breakpoint. It's more damage to demons, and it's a ton of fire res. So that's, honestly, it's pretty hard to beat these gloves for almost any melee build that does a ton of physical damage. Which in this case, this build is both a ton of physical and a ton of lightning damage. So yeah, it's pretty hard to beat. There are other options, of course, though, for different setups. This is Dual Leech. So attack rating, I wouldn't say is insanely essential for this, but it definitely helps a little bit, especially against like bosses and whatnot. But Conviction will usually do the job for you no matter what. And then, of course, Mana Leech, Life Leech. We do need those somewhere, and usually the best area to get that from is the ring. Mana is really nice for teleporting, but there's a lot of other stats you can have, like life. Magic Find is really good, especially if you're trying to like increase your odds of finding items and farming on this character. I don't have this Magic Find on this one, but it's really good. Highly recommended. And then of course Res is going to be nice as well. Raven Frost is mandatory on this build. You need a source of Cannot Be Frozen. There are other ways to get it on other melee builds, such as putting a Cham Rune in your helm, but you can't do that on this build because you have a Dream, and Dreams don't have Cannot Be Frozen, and you can't put a Cham Rune in a rune word that is a rune word. You can put that in a unique item, but not a rune word. So you're going to need Cannot Be Frozen somewhere, and Raven Frost is definitely the best area to get it on this build. Also, you get more attack rating and dex for getting max block, and more mana, and even cold absorb, so can't complain about that. And then, of course, Ratnet's Mesh is to help us get to that 48 FCR breakpoint on weapon swap for teleporting. Also gives us a skill, though, and even gives us slow target and maximum mana, so pretty nice. Ratnet's Mesh. There's definitely other options here, though. Like in Hardcore, for instance, I would sacrifice some FCR to make sure I had damage reduction here from either a String of Ears or a Verdungos. Word Travelers. Word Travelers is going to be best in slot on almost all cases, simply because you get a lot of physical damage off of it, and you get a ton of Magic Find, which is what this build is all about. This build has a lot of Magic Find from the double Dreams, and you get more Magic Find here, more Magic Find here, so it makes sense. However, for Ubers, and if you want to slightly increase your damage, it is arguable that Gore Riders are also a very solid choice. Of course, you can also use like Goblin Toes against Ubers as well. And of course, we have here a bunch of AR max charms. I recommend having max MF. So max damage MF charms. Those are very good. Those will increase your physical damage while also improving your magic find. The AR is part of the max damage stat, so it's the find stat. And don't really need it that much, but it's there. And then, of course, the rest of it, I'm just stacking Res and MF. I only have one all Res MF charm here, which is right here. But as you can see, those would be ideal, but it's really hard to find them. So just do what you can to stack your Res. As you can see, my Res is really stacked anyway, so I don't even really have to worry about that. This character is not going to be very easy to kill. Of course, from Souls it would be, but you know, there are ways, of course, to remedy this, such as, of course, switching to resist lightning, for instance, to make it at least to where I have 95 lightning res, which definitely make it hard for Souls to kill me, right? If I had Cleansing and Vigor, of course, I would use those as well, but yeah, once again, this character does not have them. You can also, of course, have Salvation to increase your res as well, which are very cool tools. So yeah, there's a lot of auras you can switch to. You don't always have to be on Conviction to help mobility, survivability, and, you know, overall improve quality of life. Also, besides, of course, these charms, we always have a Geed's Fortune, a Paladin Torch, and a Nihilus, which these are the best ones I have, at least at the moment, for this build. Alright, so without further ado, let's show off what he's capable of. So, this is a max level area. This is the pit. We're gonna go farm the pit. Pit can drop any item in the game. And we're gonna show him off in player 7. So, let's see what he's capable of doing here. So once again, I am teleporting on my weapon swap where my CTA and my Spirit are, so I have faster cast rate. And notice that the mana leech from my ring is taking care of my mana. Always pick up the charms. And in general, I'm going to be targeting elite packs with Zeal. I'm swapping back using Teleport on my swap. Swap back again, jump in with Conviction, and make sure I have Conviction active at all times while using Zeal. Notice that when I have both the Crepify and my Conviction Aura on, there's nothing I cannot kill. Even in high player count, this is player 7, so you can do this in a full game. On Battle.net or player 7 on single player. Remember, if you want to farm in a high player count, you don't have any friends, you can always join public games, and you can leech off of their Baal games. You don't actually go and join Baal with them and whatnot, or whoever's running the Baal game. You can just go farm pit in that high player count game and follow along, and hopefully you can enter those games and farm some nice stuff. This does appear to be the case, at least for console, even on D2R. I mean, not console, PC for D2R. Not currently for console, but that's okay. At least as the time of making this video. As you can see though, my damage is insane. Player 7 is really high, and I'd really like to emphasize this is player 7. This character can kill anything because he has such a high amount of lightning and physical damage. Immunities, unless they have a ton of both lightning and physical res, or immunities, or a combination of the two, it's gonna be a breeze to kill things in general. Mercenary's got my Might Aura now. I go show him off in Ancient Tunnels, which is another max level area. Ancient Tunnels will always be in that L-shaped house. Yep, right there. It's right by this L-shaped house. There you go. Of course, if you're from America, shaped like a gun. Alright. Same thing every time. It's kind of hard to see. The pit's always at the end of the path somewhere, but that always depends. Alright, so right there I accidentally sealed with my weapon swap. It's pretty obvious because you can see your axe out. Just switch back and you're fine. Notice though, when I weapon swap, I switch, make sure we have conviction on the right click. But yeah, we can solo a max player count game with this monster. Like, it's not even a problem. And as you can see, we're not really having much issues with survivability either most of the time. So he is a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun at parties. One thing you'll note though is when I lower the player count, you can see just how much damage the Holy Shock Aura is doing as well. Which is pretty neat. Alright, here we go. So anyway, as you can see, I'm targeting elite packs, so those special, unique monsters like these ones right here, like Wind Blister, or Champions, Fanatics, and whatnot. Because those have the best odds of dropping good items, and that's how you just want to farm on most builds in general, unless you're a very strong high-density clearer, such as a Poison Necromancer, Lightning Sorceress to some degree as well, a Lightning Fury Amazon, and a number of other builds. Those builds, of course, I've also written on Maxwell, just to give some examples, of course. Alright, so as you can see, we did those as well, but we can do almost any area. We can even do Travancore in P7. I would recommend doing players 3 in Travancore normally, but this kind of is just a flex, just to show how strong he is. Even an area where there's lightning immunes, he's not really phased. Of course, one thing to note, of course, is that he also destroys bosses as well.
Good day.
And we'll do that as well on P7. Now, I'm actually going to swap to players 3. Actually, let's do player 7 on some of the other really strong areas he's good at. Some of the farming spots, they're, you know, shown as good farming spots for him in the Maxwell written guide. Look at that, man. Now, notice that I'm actually struggling with this monster here. Let's see here. Yep, he's physical and lightning immune. This is an example of a monster that you actually want to skip. And there are not many of those monsters out there, but I can break his physical immunity with the Decrepify, but he's still lightning immune, and he's still highly physical resistant. There are many monsters that he can't absolutely wreck, but that's an example of when he can. There's definitely examples of that out there, but notice, that's player 7 Mephisto. That's just how much raw damage he has. Absolute monster. Alright, let's make sure we have Smite on offhand. Alright. So let's go do some more player 7 areas here. And then I'm going to go show kind of how powerful the aura is in players 3 by redoing the pit. And then I think I'm going to go run one mini Uber just to show you guys how strong this character is, even without Uber specific gear. That being said, with Uber specific gear, you can make him even stronger in some senses. Especially if you use the Act 1 Faith Mercenary. And you use Last Wish, which is really expensive, even more expensive on top of all the rest of the expense on this build. That being said, it's strong. Alright. Here we go. Alright, so as you can see, this build does not struggle even slightly with destroying these monsters. Not even a little bit. He's fully loaded and he's ready to go. This is player 7 Chaos, so this is one of the tougher areas in the game. I'd say his best areas, like overall, his very best areas are probably Worldstone Keep and Pit, but he can do any max level area. He can also farm all the key bosses, even if he's not necessarily the most efficient means of doing it, he's very good at it. Alright, so as you can see here, we got Infector of Souls, who is physical immune. Here or not, we can still kill him, even at high player count. This thing is a monster! Absolute monster. Absolute beast. Shredding. Melting. It's a lot of fun.
Even death can save you from me.
Actually, no, let's kill player 7 Diablo. There we have it. Dead Diablo can't even move because of Decrepify. Easiest kills of my life. Right there is one. Summon Grizzly, a Jewel, some charms. Okay. So, Worldstone Keep is one of his better areas because Worldstone Keep is tough for a lot of builds because they only have one source of damage. Or maybe only 2 weak sources of damage. Because I do such insane amounts of damage, you can even destroy player 7 Worldstone Keep like it's nothing. It's high of a map as well. Remember in higher player count, the regular monsters are more likely to drop items. Not the elites, those always have the same drop rate no matter what. Not the elites themselves, but the minions and the random monsters drop really well in player 7. You can just jump into the monsters and have a good time. Smash it! You just crash every party. There's just... Then swap again, back to teleport. Okay. So as you can see, this build has no shortage. Oh, holy shield went out. It's okay, I can quickly do it. Alright, so as you can see, if I wanted to here, I can actually put on my resist lightning aura and rely mostly on my physical damage for the time being, so that I don't die to the souls. Notice that the souls are no longer able to kill me. So you don't need T-gods or anything, you can just put on resist lightning. Pretty cool, right? Right, yeah, so this build's got everything. This build is fully equipped, fully loaded. Absolute monster. The only reason he's not S tier though is, as you can see, his mobility is lacking a little bit compared to maybe like a sorceress or a berserk barbarian. Wow, we just found an IK armor on the demo video. This is funny. Wow, that's pretty rare. Well, a good demo of how much magic bind we have, right? So yeah, as you can see, you know, these are lightning immunes, but we don't have to worry about it because we have a ton of physical damage. Notice that they don't even break from conviction. These are very resistant mages, but who cares? We got tons of physical damage on top of the lightning damage, so most of the time, one of the strongest things about this character is you don't have to worry about immunities, except in very rare cases like Frem's Spark Fist there, where you can still kill him, but he's definitely going to slow you down quite a bit. I recommend skipping that. It's not worth it usually, it just takes too much time. Alright. Alrighty, let's go. Alright, so now I can go kill Baal. I'm also gonna do Nihlathak just to show you guys that, I'd say for key farming, where he's really strong at is farming Nihlathak, so if you don't have many good D key farmers, or you want to farm some D keys to maybe get your Ubers started, he can do all the keys, of course, but there's other ways, there's faster characters for farming the other ones. He's not maybe the most ideal Nihlathak farmer in the entire universe, but he gets the job done, and you can even wear a Nature's Piece for doing it. I'm not going to wear the Nature's Piece, but I'll just show you how much damage he has. See, this is where I wish I had, like, Vigor Aura, so I could, like, move around town and maybe move to and fro. That's for fun, of course. And here's where we would like Cleansing Aura for Wave 2, but whatever. Yeah, one thing I noticed, if you are lacking res in your charms, let's say your inventory isn't very good, just use Salvation and Resist Lightning. Just use them. You still have a lot of physical damage, and you still have a lot of lightning damage, even without Conviction, even though Conviction's doing a ton of work for that lightning damage off the dreams. Alright, and of course, as you can see, we're pretty tanky there. Nice. Okay, very cool. Shadow plate. Ready to go, and set. Alright, and... yeah, look at this. This is player 7 once again. Like, this is not a joke. A lot of people think melee builds are trash, but one thing can be said for sure. This build is definitely not one of them. There are a ton of good melee builds in LOD and, of course, in D2R. They're underestimated, I think, but maybe because they're really weak early on. As you can see, though, this one doesn't suffer from that problem. One thing about the Dream Paladin versus the Zealer is the Zealer can actually have a build to have so much attack speed that he doesn't get affected by Decrepify. And this build is Look at that. He's physical immune right now. That's how much lightning damage we're able to do. We don't even have to walk the dog or anything. In the case of the Zealer, you probably would just walk him outside, but the Zeal Paladin's a different build. I also wrote that guide, of course, but killing Baal in Players 7 is just... It doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. He maxes out in all of his main benefits at Players 3. We're going to lower to Players 3. And then we're going to go kill Nihlathak, and then I'm going to go kind of demo some of his lower player count power, like Players 3, Players 1 power. And, yeah, GG stuff. Yeah, this is where we'd want Vigor running through town. I would sacrifice points into sacrifice. Lols. Sacrifice from sacrifice. Okay, guys. Okay, did you catch what I said there? You don't need that. We already found materials might, as you can see. You know, we don't need this nonsense. See, we're good. We're good. Okay. So let's go kill Nihlathak. Let's go do player 7. This just showed us how ridiculously strong this build is one more time. These are lightning immunes, so they're a little tougher. But notice that Conviction can break their immunity. Oh wow, I'm actually gonna die, I think. Mercenary got wrecked. Okay, so they have Amp. They got some nasty stuff going on here. Very tanky, physical resistant, lightning immune monsters. Definitely not the best. This is another example of a type of an enemy that you might want to avoid, but you can still kill them. And in lower player count, this would be a cinch. It's just, since we're in player 7, they are very tanky. But as you can see, we can still kill them. That's how strong this build is. Put all that physical res on, you put on all that lightning immunity, high lightning resistance. He still chews through them. Even in high player count, the monsters are at their literally strongest possible version of themselves. Yeah, that's how crazy this build is. It's a good demo of power, I guess, then. Okay, so these snakes, I don't think are going to be bugged in D2R, but they currently are right now. They might be, I don't know. So they're doing billions of damage per second. Alright. And there you go. Even under the conditions of strong monsters, you can just jump in and have a good time and smash them. Yes. Alright. And of course, in lower player counts, that'd be even easier. But yeah, you can just jump in. Not an issue. Of course, you know what, actually, let's show it again here. Although I always know where Nihlathak is based on the location of the waypoint and the 2 paintings. You guys didn't know how that works. There you go, 2 paintings. So he's lightning immune in this case, but with both Conviction and Decrepify in him, he just gets absolutely smoked. Wow, double D-keys. That's sick, actually. Wow. Huh. Oh, what do you know? It's pretty neat, right? Okay. Sweet.
Hello.
Alright, so that's pretty good damage, right?
Yes?
Pretty strong stuff. He really doesn't worry about much in general, but you know, you will die from some things. Remember, your damage reduction is not insanely high, which is why we started to die to those Night Lords, because our damage reduction. That's where String of Ears could help a lot, and of course life in your charms and whatnot. Just more life damage reduction would help a lot with survivability. Obviously, if you want to forgo for Enigma, you can even go like Shaft Stop and then use like a teleport charge amulet for mobility. There's a lot of choices for sure. Alright, so now though, let's show off players 3. So, in some regards, he's even stronger and slightly lower player count. That's because of his Holy Shock Aura AoE and power. Let's show off, of course, what he's really capable of in some of these regards here. And then, yeah. Okay. As you can see, I pretty much one-shot everything, or like two-shot everything in players 3. Everything just melts. So if there's only 3 players in your game, or in players 3 on single player, /players 3, it's gonna be a good time. Now, one thing to know. Actually, no, I'll pick that up just in case we need it. Alright. Here we go. So I'm just gonna kind of sit here and show you guys how strong that aura is. This is P3, and it's killing monsters in P3 without me even touching them. That passive damage is constantly happening as they're attacking. This is why this build is a little bit better at AoE clearing than the Zealer or the Zeal Paladin, for instance. Zeal Paladin has advantages in that it just does so much raw physical damage that's maybe slightly better in killing Ubers. And, better at, like, avoiding Decrepify with various builds. It does more just raw damage against certain kinds of monsters. The ones that aren't lightning, the ones that are, like, lightning immune, for instance. But this character just does so much damage. There's really no denying how powerful it is. And as you can see, if I was farming like by myself, everything's melting around me, I'm killing everything where I'm at. Just make sure to have that conviction aura on at all times. Alright, and then of course I'll show one more version where I'm playing solo in players 1 just to show you guys just how melty this build really gets. And then I think I'm gonna do one mini Uber demo just to show you guys how he does against like an Uber boss of some kind. And then of course if you use the Ubers variant on the Maxwell site, you'll be able of course to have an even better build that will kill Ubers even faster in most cases. In most cases. Okay, here we go. This build, though, can do it all, though. See? This is player... Oh, wow. That's it. That's not a good sound. Lulz. Okay. Windows OP. Alright, God. See, as you can see, though, like, this is solo play. Look how everything just dies. It really nothing stands up to this thing under any circumstances. It's just a juggernaut. Look at him melt all the monsters. Absolutely breathtaking. Insane power level, man. Insane. This is Dragon Ball Z, man. It's looking good. Alright, here we go. Alright, so let's go do one more demo, and then that will conclude this guide. Hope you guys have enjoyed this demo and have learned a lot more about the Dream Paladin in general and what he's capable of.
Stay a while and listen.
Of course, I highly recommend reading throughout the entire written guide on Maxroll if you really want to refer back to any of this information that has already been given in this guide, and even additional, more detailed information about to play this insanely awesome build. This is one of my favorite builds, period. I would say it's like, in terms of like my absolute favorite builds, this is probably my top 5 for sure. It's expensive, but once you can get at least 2 jaw runes and maybe 3 jaw runes, you're gonna be balling. No doubt. You don't even need expensive skill GCs, so that's one advantage. You can just use like Magic Find and damage, and as long as you can get those jaw runes, that's the key. And of course, Grief would be very nice too. Grief is just too much physical damage to pass up. Alright. So let's go find our keys here. Alright. Here we go. Matron's Den. You know, this is a good test, actually. I'm kind of glad that happened. Alright, I'm gonna go kill Lilith. Alright, so... Matron's Den, as you can see, is no joke of a farming area. No joke whatsoever. I mean, not farming area, sorry, Uber area. So as you can see, the Mercenary decrept Lilith, but unfortunately he died very fast. Alright, so as you can see, even without decrept from the Mercenary, we are still destroying Lilith. I don't even have open wounds on this build because I'm not even wearing Gore Riders. I am wearing like nothing. Look at that. Absolute decimation. That is how powerful the Conviction Aura and the Dreams are with just the Grief alone. And we didn't even keep the Mercenary alive. So the Mercenary died. We didn't even have Decrep. Decrep would have been really nice. That would have... With Decrep, she would have gotten absolutely spanked. And as you could see in the beginning there how much damage I was doing when she was decrepified. But yeah, I mean... No problem. I didn't even have life tap or anything. That is how strong this build is. It's so powerful. No shortage of damage. I don't even have DR. I don't have any of the gear that you'd want to use in the Ubers variant. So there's definitely more optimal ways. There's more safe ways to do it. But man, absolutely bonkers, right? Absolutely bonkers. Or Lilith, right? And that's the strongest of the mini Ubers. The only other strong monster, like from the Ubers, is going to be Mephisto. Mephisto, what's really cool about Uber Mephisto is you can even cancel out his Conviction Aura because your Conviction Aura is higher than his. He has level 20 Conviction Aura, we have level 25. Now, when we cancel him out, our Conviction Aura is also canceled out. But that's cool, because that means we just do the physical damage to him and he dies. And if we have open wounds and we have crushing blow and we have all those other stats, he'll die as well. So that's how strong just the standard version of this build is. It can kill everything. It's so strong. It's so strong. So this is definitely one of those wish list builds. Definitely those farm up to this builds kind of like powerhouse builds. It's just really fun to play. You jump into everything, you melt everything, you can do all content. It's pretty easy to play. It plays like a Zealer, so there's not too many buttons you have to be constantly switching between. Got it all. With that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of YouTube, and Maxroll, and anyone that's watching this guide, this was the Dream Paladin guide, video guide, at least for now, until I'm probably gonna redo all the guides at some point. Using D2R graphics, so we can actually do them on D2R itself, but we're launching this before the actual launch of D2R. Check out our other LOD build guides on my YouTube, Dark Humility, check those out, of course, and www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility. Watch my stream 6 to 7 days a week. Ask me any kinds of questions at any time about any of my guides on Maxroll, or this guide particularly. I just hang out and have a good time. We definitely have a good time. We do it all in Diablo 2. Gonna be going hard on hardcore on D2R starting September 23rd. Make sure to like and subscribe this video if you enjoyed this and thought this was a useful guide. And I, of course, will see you for more awesome Diablo 2 content on my YouTube and Twitch and Discord, of course. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Dark Humility. Over and out. Dream Paladin. Electrify the world. Get it. He's the dream machine. He is the absolute dream machine. Take him for a spin. I'll see you guys next time.